son of a gun. It was the 1930s. And remember, Bernanke got a Nobel Prize for saving the U.S. economy, although he's the one who ruined it.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm going to get a Nobel Prize. I'm going to hurt the American economy, and then I'm going to rescue it, and you'll have to give me a Nobel Prize.
Stay tuned for that.
Good morning, everybody. We're glad to be here again. We're in the studios of Northpoint. Mark and I here ready to get started on a new series of videos.
Yeah, it's been a while. Good to be back. Walter, and I guess, part of it was last year was sort of flat, right? I mean, 2024.
Exactly.
There wasn't a lot to talk about, especially going to the election, because that's all anybody was talking about, and most of it didn't make any sense, right?
So let's talk about 2024, and we can talk about other things later. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, and I think that, with interest rates sort of, hanging up, the economy slowing down, and everybody completely obsessed with the election. Nobody made any moves last year, or very few, right?
Yeah, that's right. They didn't. And part of it is because we've got an awful lot of young and inexperienced people telling us what's going to happen in capital markets and putting together their interest rate predictions and seemingly unable to read a chart.
Right.
So, I'm slamming the guys on Wall Street. I'm slamming the guys in real estate who do capital markets because, really, this wasn't the year for amateur hour. And I'll explain to you what I mean.
Yeah.
When you look at the Fed's tightening cycle, going way back 60, 70 years, what happens is you're coming out of a recession, right? Or you're coming out of a wonky economic period because...
Slow down.
Yeah, COVID was, what the hell was that? But it definitely wasn't a great time. And
it was a mixed bag for sure.
Exactly. So you come out of that, and what the Fed is doing is cutting interest rates because you want to get people to buy stuff. Some people are unemployed. Remember when Biden came in, there was still very high unemployment. And you had to keep interest rates down as long as you could. And we'd set them to zero in 2020. So you couldn't cut it any further. Otherwise, you'd be paying people to borrow money. And so we kept it at zero. And this stimulated spending beyond the fiscal policy, the handouts that we got in 2020 and Biden's 2021. So beyond that, we kept rates at zero. We were encouraging spending, and companies were not that thrilled about investing in production capacity. They were concerned about the future. We got overstocked. How do we get out of COVID? What's the world going to be like? And then as we started to recover and really pick up and GDP accelerated and unemployment dropped down to just about 3%, that's when the Fed had to hike because, that old trade-off of when unemployment falls, inflation picks up, it kicked in.
Yeah.
A little bit of a lag, compared to the past, but it kicked in. And the Fed cuts those rates, it gets people to spend, and what happens is companies really aren't investing in production capacity. So in other words, demand is being pushed up, but supply is, I'm a CEO, I better pay dividends to Wall Street because if I invest, the market might not like it, and so supply stays static, demand picks up, and prices start to rise.
Living quarter to quarter, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So what does the Fed do? The Fed starts to raise rates because you got to cool the spending because inflation's getting a little high.
And Jerome got real aggressive.
And he got very aggressive. He thought it was 1978, but he's a little old and a little, it was him and Biden competing for who's more gaga, right? But anyways, they did raise rates aggressively, and once demand and supply balanced out, inventories came pretty much under control by 2023. It was March of 2022 when Walmart came out with their quarterly earnings and said, we have way too much inventory, we're going to get rid of it. And then Target said, yeah, us too. And Amazon said, us too. And everybody who follows the port industry said, come on, the rest of you, fess up. We had 100 ships waiting to get into LA Long Beach. We had 20 waiting to get into Savannah. We had 20 waiting to get into New York. it wasn't just those guys who had, overstocked. So come on, cough it up. So they all did. And by early last year, 2023, we had the inventories really coming back under control.
Yep.
And in 2024, we actually saw some companies understocked.
Yep.
Not the big guys as much, but definitely smaller guys. And inflation has come way down. We got up to 9%, and now we dropped as low as 2.2, I think it was, and we're bouncing between 2 and 3,
Yep.
which is what I told you about a year and a half ago, that I don't see how we get to 2, because the Fed does not pay attention to long-term things like demographics. Right? Our workforce is not growing very quickly. Over the next 10 years, maybe 0.1% per year. We don't want any immigrants, so and we're going to use that amazing technology that doesn't work. So guess what? We had that inflation, and so as we cooled demand a little bit, not much. So the growth in demand slowed down. You still had some growth, but it was small. And companies felt a little safer, rates coming down, and we are beginning to see more investment in production capacity. So that's phase 2. Okay?
Can you call it a soft landing at this point?
Yeah, it's definitely a soft landing.
And so, and I know that people are still out there in the headlines, or what do we see? And I think it's like, no, I think the plane landed.
Yeah. The plane did land. Exactly. They were expecting a bigger rise in unemployment, and then, a decline. But, again, folks, wake up. We don't have labor force growth in this country.
Yep.
So you're not going to get this spike to 10%, because, stupid companies will lay people off. Companies struggling with bankruptcy will lay people off. Smart companies are like, they're going to be like Norfolk Southern. They hired all of these workers because originally they fired them under that nonsense of, what was it, precision scheduled railroading.
Right.
Yeah. Much longer trains, that's going to save us money, especially when one breaks down and now we got twice as many rail cars to go fix, okay? It's nonsense. So Norfolk Southern went with that because they had to. The Wall Street forced them. And then in 2022, they started to hire, by the thousands. And they said, even if there's a recession in 23 or 24, we don't care. We're going to keep these people because it's really hard to find them. It takes forever to train them.
If there's a sub-theme over the last couple of years, that's it.
That's exactly
it. You got to hang on to your great people.
And that's what you're seeing. So you don't get that unemployment spiking up because the Fed raised rates. And so the Fed raised rates, and now they're cutting them because if you cut rates, it stimulates investment in physical capacity, et cetera. I've seen a lot of reports about, industrial real estate, it's coming to an end. We're not going to build any. Oh, shut up. Okay, interest rates come down. Guess what we're going to do?
Yeah, and the online percentage just continues to grow, right?
Exactly.
And now that Amazon has reset the, normal to one-day delivery.
Mm-hmm. And you've got Temu and Shein beginning to realize that they're using cheap Chinese labor to create packets, and they're using the de minimis rule to fly in under the radar. Yeah, that'll continue to work, but eventually we're going to kill it. So build warehouses in the U.S., store stuff in the U.S., and the stuff that you always sell, and you don't need to look at TikTok to see what are people looking at. Let's design the latest mini skirt with pink ribbons on the side or whatever it is. They have to follow Amazon's example. And what did Amazon do? They looked at Temu and Shein and the other 28 Chinese e-commerce companies and said, oh no, we're not going to be a dinosaur someday, but today is not the day. And they started to mimic the Shein and Temu business models. So you're seeing this convergence in e-commerce to really fast ordering, fast cycle, using air freight for delivery, but also for stuff that's not as fast moving or the demand is very predictable, build warehouses and have it ready to deliver. But something that I told you 4 years ago when we started this, if you do more e-commerce, you have to have more warehouses.
Yep.
End of discussion. If I want to compete with Walmart in Savannah and I don't have inventory in Savannah, it's all sitting in Atlanta, the best I can do is next day delivery.
Right.
And if you need something today or you want it by tonight, Walmart's your option. Now, I put a warehouse here in town with all of the kind of stuff people order a lot, toilet paper, whatever, and I can place an order with Walter's Warehouse and I get it cheaper than Walmart. It works. And guess what? We're still seeing that demand popping up here. Even LA Long Beach, where, you know, the political scene is really anti-business, you know, not just the environmentalists, but the AB5 and now AB 98 and whatever, more ABs. You're still seeing a lot of growth. And Craig Meyer at JLL, he told us that last year. He goes, don't get stupid about California.
Yeah.
You've got more e-commerce. So it's good for the kind of business you and I are in and the stuff that we support and develop and promote. Rates coming down means a lot of projects that were waiting for better terms. You know, you don't want to lock in the interest rate here and the return on capital here, kind of like what the new El Presidente did with that building in Chicago. You know, it's dead. It's a long-term loser. The financing cost is higher than the return on capital.
And it seems like in the last 90 days, even now that the election's behind us, which is our next podcast.
Yes, exactly.
Stay tuned. Yeah, you've got behind us a soft landing, a presidential election that's taken place. There's certainly some clarity there. Interest rates pulling down a bit. Looking forward to our next podcast where we dig into it.
Before you get rid of that, rates will come down more. And then what happens is as the investment side of the economy starts pushing commodity prices up, and that's one of the drivers of inflation on the supply side. Transportation gets more expensive. Right. Inflation picks back up, and then the Fed goes in and tightens again. And I can show you the chart, and anybody who wants to email us, we're happy to share it with you. But then there's a second tightening cycle, and guess what? That's when the recession occurs. And if you look back in time, you'll see that the only time that approach failed was with bumbling Ben Bernanke, who blew up the US economy. Rates were very high. I was still in Wall Street in January of 2006. I wrote a report to my clients and I said, if he doesn't cut rates now, this could become a disaster like the 1930s. And I was being a little dramatic, and son of a gun, it was the 1930s. And remember, Bernanke got a Nobel Prize for saving the US economy, although he's the one who ruined it.
Yeah.
So that's how I'm going to get a Nobel Prize. I'm going to hurt the American economy, and then I'm going to rescue it, and you'll have to give me a Nobel Prize.
Stay tuned for that. Walter, great being with you, man.
All right, buddy. Good seeing you.
Thanks so much. Thanks, guys.